I was actually driving past business to get to business. That's been my model, I believe, from leading from the front. I think we could get some of you guys to $4 million to $6 million a year in revenue. And that was seriously a mindset deal.
So the latest thing that we've been working on is maximizing our LSAs, which is local service ads, and also optimizing our Google My Business profiles. So what that means is we're making sure that all of our LSAs are on when we need them and they're maximized to give us the best ROI. And then for GMBs, it's been partnering with service scalers to drive way more traffic through our GMBs. GMBs are almost like the new SEO. The more you put onto them, the better the performance. So our GMBs have been consistently getting better week after week after week. And it is currently our single most impactful organic lead channel. So we'll sell hundreds of thousands of dollars a week through our GMBs. And I think last week we got 900 phone calls. So really impactful, awesome investment. And we've been able to partner with service scalers on both of those things. If you want to hear a little bit more about service scalers, check out servicescalers.com. Welcome back to Owned and Operated. Today on the show, I have Paul Reed from Northwest Roofing. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, this will be fun. I don't get to have a lot of roofing on. I think I had one guy and, he's coming on next week, but he's startup roofing operator. So $4 or $5 million, I think. So this will be fun to talk about big roofing.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I love doing this.
Before we get too into it, I've got a bunch of stuff to ask. I'd love to just get a background on Northwest Roofing. How did it start and where's it at today?
Yeah, great question. So that Northwest Roofing actually was established in 1963 in Denver. I actually got into roofing in 1992. So I'm celebrating, right, my 33rd year in roofing. I partnered with a gentleman, 15 years ago, and he had actually acquired Northwest Roofing a couple of years before me. It was kind of a dormant company for a few years, and he acquired it, and we partnered together and really kind of built it up to where we are today.
How large was it when that happened, that initial partnership?
So from the initial partnership, from when he first acquired it, it was at zero. It was dormant. And then Tom and I partnered. They were doing, they was dormant, just had a name, had the, licenses that were still active from 1963, registered with the Secretary of State. But when Tom and I partnered up, we were about 7 million.
I've heard that that's a thing inside roofing. So someone will, that happened here a couple of years ago. A lot of hailstorms. So a lot of companies got started up or they bought dormant brands basically. And then they just stopped using them one day. So was that sort of what that was, or was it a little bit different?
No, it absolutely was. The company, again, when they had started it, I think it had probably been dormant. When I said a couple years, hell, it might have even been 5 years.
Yeah.
And he actually ran across the grandson of the original owner. And, we pretty much just bought the name, right? There wasn't, any tools or trucks or anything like that. Pretty much bought the name, and the longevity in business is really what we purchased.
And what year was that?
That would have been about 2004.
When you first started off, I'm talking origin story stuff here. How much of this was like storm chasing? Were you guys traveling all over the place for work, or was it like, hey, we're posted up in Denver and this is what we're doing?
Well, for me personally, when I started when I was 18, it was just, I was actually a guy on the roof. But when we started Northwest Roofing, we were pretty much based in Denver. About the first year, kind of started to move out a little bit, a few different areas around Colorado, and then got tempted to move to a few different states as well.
When did you start moving to different states?
Would have been about 2009, 2010. And that's, we kind of used to different volumes. We would be doing a couple thousand roofs a year. And most of that, I'm going to say all of it was pretty dependent on hailstorms. And, back then in Denver, it was pretty easy to sell a lot of hail affected houses. And so, you come up on a year and all of a sudden it gets to be July, and you're like, man, and maybe it's not going to hail in Denver, and maybe we need to go work in Albuquerque, New Mexico, because they just, got a storm last week.
And you would just launch a location there? Is that how that worked?
Yeah, absolutely. So most states with roofing in particular, you don't really have to have a state license. There's a handful of states that you do. The ones that do require it, it's not that hard to get. But over the last 15, 20 years, like a storm would hit in Kansas and Hutchinson, Kansas, and on Tuesday and by Wednesday, I had an LLC in an office, set up and business cards and signs made by Wednesday afternoon at 3:00, and we were a local company.
What do you do? So in either of those two examples, what do you do once you're done with the storm? Do you just like leave it dormant, or does that become a permanent location that you then just sell retail?
We've done a mix of both. So we pulled out, got done. We always leave someone behind for 6 months to a year, and then I also have connections to make sure if there's an issue, a warranty deal. But a lot of people, that's the misconception of storm chasing, is that storm chasers come in out of town, screw up the market, do a bunch of roofs, and then leave. And I'm sure there are people out there like that, but we have used both models where we went in, sold a few hundred roofs, left, or sold a few hundred roofs and kind of stayed there for another few years.
Just selling retail.
No, yeah, just selling retail. And you can clean up the storms. There's always people that drag their feet, so you could continue to do it. My model, it's in roofing, it's not that difficult to go generate $1 million or $2 million in revenue in a city. I mean, we're talking a few hundred roofs, and it's not difficult to do. And we've been able over the years to keep open different branches, just based off of doing that.
So how many active branches are there for Northwest today?
Well, we were acquired by another company in September. So now it's really, really multiplied. But before then, about 8.
Okay. And is that the most was that like the peak of branches, or did you guys ever run more than that?
That's probably about the peak. Yeah, that's probably about the peak. Yes, sir.
I'm trying to imagine just like plumbing, HVAC, electric. So I'm trying to imagine the organizational complexity of, hey, I had a storm in Kansas. I need to deposit a sales manager, quickly train up reps or ship sales reps over, have them live there for some amount of time. I mean, that's a lot. There's a lot going on there.
Yes and no. But the fact is, once you kind of figured out the model, and basically you see a storm hit, on whatever, Tuesday afternoon at 3:00, you start looking at it. We start making a few phone calls of like, hey, did it do damage or not? And literally kind of make that decision. I'm like, hey, we're going to go set up in, whatever, middle of Kansas, middle of Wyoming, Nebraska, wherever we were going to go. And once you kind of have your system of, people that you're able to print signs fastly, business cards at Kinko's. It doesn't take much to do that. Mm-hmm. Change your phone number with, all the apps that you have on your phone. Different things like that. It's not that difficult. And you could send 3, 4, 5 guys in initially. And then at that time, training sales reps isn't difficult. Our industry for the last 30 years on the storm restoration side, man, we've been blessed because it's not that hard of a business. Like it's not the organizational thing that you think of like on your side on the HVAC. Now it has gotten a little bit difficult. There's a lot more contractors, so we have a lot more competition, and so those things have come into place. But kind of back in the day, and even go back just 5 years ago, it was simple. It wasn't a nightmare to open up a branch in Omaha, Nebraska tomorrow.
What percentage of revenue today is like storm chasing versus retail roof? Even just in Denver, like is Denver still the big banana and we're just doing a ton of retail now? Or have we really just sort of dispersed?
So Denver's probably 80 to 90% storm, but across the country,
Really?
I believe the number is about 30% storm, the rest 70% retail, I believe are the numbers. I think I'm pretty close to that.
So Denver's 80 to 90% storm. That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, no one in their right mind is going to replace their roof out of pocket.
Like how many hailstorms a month is that?
So, like last year, it came in and it was, I think they said it was $1 billion storm. The one in 2024, 23 was a little bit bigger than that. And that's a lot of roofs, right?
Yeah, that is, okay, that's fascinating. All right, so if pretend I just launched a roofing contractor, walk me through this here. So I'm in Cleveland. I hear there's a storm in Florida. I don't know. There always seems to be a storm in Florida. Maybe that hurricane from a couple months ago. All right. So that hurricane from a couple months ago, does that impact roofs? Probably not like hail.
Oh, it does. Yeah. I mean, the wind. So we work off of windstorms.
Tears up the shingles. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It does.
Do you think this is the best place? So I'm contrasting this with, I have a friend who has a roofing franchise, and he's pretty locked in to an area because it's a franchise, right? It's a geographically contained unit. Whereas it doesn't sound like your business model would really work with that at all, because you get like your whole thing is like, let's go find whatever just happened.
Yeah, and that's been my business model. And listen, I'm 50 years old, and again, I've been in this 30. This is my 33rd year in this. Mm-hmm. If I had to do it all over again, I probably would have stayed a little bit more local, because I also think that I kind of got it in my blood to where I was actually driving past business to get to business. Right.
Oh, okay.
Because of the rush of running into a new city, a new state, to open up an office, and like, your ego kind of comes into play. And I hope that makes sense, but like there's this whole just rush of doing that. And that was fun. And we were successful. I know a lot of people that were successful, but I probably know more people that failed at doing that.
Yeah.
But again, if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't drive past business to get to business. I don't know if I would have grew to be a $30 or $40 million a year company. I might have stayed around, I don't know, $10, $15 million a year and been happy and had a little more quality of life with work-life balance.
How often were you personally going to some of these, or was that always the game?
That was always the game. I was usually the storm setter. I was out leading the charge with the guys. That's been my model, I believe, from leading from the front. And I've never asked any of my guys to move to a city to go work there for 3-4 months without me going as well.
You partnered with Tom. You're in Denver, which apparently has a wild amount of hail. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You start seeing these storms. And the first one, was it actually Albuquerque? You use that as a reference.
Yes, that we actually moved to. So Albuquerque got hit in 2009. And we went down there and we bought a company again that was a small little company that had been open since 1986. I mean, literally I think we paid $20,000 for the name and the licensing. And now we've been in Albuquerque since 1986, man. We've, been here 25 years.
Yeah. We had a major hailstorm. I want to say it was 3 years ago. And I had a friend who was a roofer, and he described how people from out of town were asking to rent his name, because he was an active business.
Yes.
But he was like, they wanted to rent my name and maybe change the phone number, maybe not. And have you guys done that before?
Yeah, that's a common model. The godfather of roofing, the guy that really kind of originated the storm restoration, storm chasing model, which was a gentleman named Marty Haight. That's what they used to do. They would go in and they would use your name and give you so much per roof, or so much per square. So 30 square roof, they'd give you like $3. And so you'd get like $90. They would just sell it under your name.
In that scenario, what happens with the warranty?
So you have, because I'm going to take that back. I have done it one time. I did it in Omaha, Nebraska, because I had to have a license there that I couldn't get for a few weeks. So I went under another brand, and we just, there's contracts that I own the warranty for the first year.
Okay.
And then after that, they have the warranty, but I paid a percentage. I think I paid like 4% of the contract total, and paid that for using their name. And they had the warranty after the year. Do
you guys still have the branch in Albuquerque?
Yeah, still Rhino. Yeah, another gentleman runs it for us. We had split it off, so it's still active. It's not currently involved with what we do.
What did your team look like? You obviously you good sized business. How did you build a leadership team to be able to deploy around launching into these new markets? Like, what did that look like?
So I've always been a believer, because one of the bad things that we have in our industry is we kind of have what's called the turn and burn model. So a lot of roofing contractors attract and promote and bring in a bunch of guys and, kind of burn them out. They go sell a few numbers and burn them out. And it's just always a revolving door. And I seen that model, years and years ago. And to be honest with you, we ran it ourselves where we would attract 30, 40 people because it was a numbers game. So we kind of looked at the first of the year and we'd say, hey, do we want to do 20 million, or whatever we're going to do this year, knowing that the average sales rep is going to sell about $300,000 a year. So, depending on what our target revenue was, that's how many reps I would need to attract, knowing that by the end of the year, only 4 or 5 of those guys would stick around. Right. And that's a horrible model, but that's still kind of the model in our industry. And I did run that for a period of time. After a while, it kind of started wearing on me of seeing the people come in and out the doors and I started thinking like, we got to do more with less. How can I not get my guys if the industry average was 300,000 and we're and like top salesmen were doing 1 million, 1.5. How can I get some guys, because I was personally doing at that time over 3.5 million myself, still running the company, still de facto sales manager, all those things. How can I get guys that high quality guys that just come out and do 3, 4, 5, 6 million instead of having 70 guys? What if I just had 5? What
did that look like the first couple? You took your best producers and like, how did you make it sustainable?
So it was a mindset. So every year for those of you guys that are watching that are in the roofing industry, we're all friends with people on Facebook that every December people are showing pictures of their Christmas party. And most roofing companies are rewarding this day $1 million sales rep with a Rolex watch, right? So if you look back 15 years ago in Denver, the average roof was about $9,000. Today, that same roof is worth $27,000. We were celebrating $1 million a year guy in 2009. We're still celebrating him now, even though back then I needed guys to go sell 100, 115 roofs. Now I expect a guy to get $1 million. He's going to go sell 25 or 30. Yeah. Like the math doesn't math with me. And so I looked at it and I started looking at my guys going, I think we could get some of you guys to $4 million to $6 million a year in revenue. And that was seriously a mindset deal. It wasn't extra sales training or anything like that. It was just giving them permission to understand that $1 million a year is not good as a sales rep. That was good 20 years ago. Yeah. When the roof was $9,000. Today, that same roof's 27. It's 3 times higher.
Yeah. How did it go?
So what I remember this like it was yesterday. The very first day I called in, I had 10 guys. I brought them into the conference room and I set them down. And we were starting to do a lot more commercial roof and stuff as well. And I told them, if you want to be in this room next year, you have to be a $6 million a year producer. Okay. And there was not one of those guys that had ever sold over $1.8 million ever in their career. And that following year, I had 3 people hit 6 million, and I think like 2 of them hit like over 4.5 and a couple, million and whatever, but they faded out. But it was shock. You could hear their jaws hit the table. They were like, there's no way, this guy's crazy as hell, because we're at one. Personally, I'm at 1.8. I worked my ass off last year, and like, how am I going to get to 6? This guy's crazy. Yeah. And so it was just really working on their mindset of like, this is possible. Me showing them like, guys, I last year, I did 3.8, whatever the number was. And like, I literally only worked, 3 or 4 hours a week selling roofs. The rest of the time I was running the company and showing them there's a path, and here's what we got to do. And here's how our day looks. Here's what we got to, all of those things, self-managing, just a belief, just a mindset.
Did the number of leads increase? Like, I guess I totally agree. That makes sense. No. We just converted more, or we sold them at a higher ticket? Like, what was the variable that changed?
We actually treated a sales job like a sales job, because most independent sales reps, like in roofing are 1099. Most managers don't know where they're at during the day. They're waking up in the morning and they might get out at 10 o'clock, maybe run to the office. And at the end of the day, they were only actually trying to sell for an hour or 2 a day. Like that's the average sales rep is actually only selling an hour or two. And what if I could get you to sell 5 or 6 hours? What would that look like? What if you treated this like a real job, like it was 8 hours a day and you were actually out in the field doing what you're supposed to for 8 hours a day? That's part of the mindset. And when we started doing that, it wasn't higher tickets, more leads, anything. It was just, we were out in the field and they sold more jobs and almost had just as much time as they did before.
How much does a roofing, is it like 10% or like how does the commission work?
10 to 14 probably, I would say.
Okay. Like based on gross margin or
14 to 16. That's like on total revenue of the job. So like most of my guys, we've all transitioned mainly to commercial now. I'm probably some years I've been like 98 to 100% commercial.
Yeah.
The last couple of years we went and sold some residential just because it was there. $1 million job, they're going to make 150.
Okay. Yeah, that's crazy.
Average home, they're going to make about 3,500 to 4,000 a ticket.
Yeah.
But see, their mindset is a lot of guys, they're like, well, I can make $75,000. That's plenty.
Yeah.
When they have the ability to go make 200 or 300, and they're just like, yeah, I could get by.
Mm-hmm.
I pay my bills at 75. So we've bred a laziness.
We're about 8 months into using Avoca, and Avoca's been an awesome partner for us in our call center. So what Avoca does for us is they do 2 different things. One, they have their Coach product, and Coach has been helping us do what it says. Coach our CSRs every single day. It listens to every call and uses AI technology to basically pick apart that call and tell us where we can improve. And for the last 8 months, we've been consistently improving our scores, which has been awesome. The other product they have is just conventional booking. And it's an AI tool that books over the phone. A customer calls in and it either handles overflow, as in our phones are full, or it does nights and weekends for us. And a customer will call in and actually deal with an AI agent all the way through booking. And the savings inside call center has allowed us to ramp up our marketing to continue to grow even more. Thank you, Avoca, and thank you, Tyson, for your partnership.
How much of the business now is residential versus commercial?
This last year I did, if you do the simple math, 5 million, and we finished around 35. So whatever that math is.
5 million was residential?
Residential.
Okay. Yeah, so you guys like fully
the rest was commercial.
Pivoted basically.
Yes, I did. I pivoted about 7 years ago to almost fully commercial. Kind of got out of the residential, but like again, this last 2 years I jumped back in because there was opportunity, and why not go get 5 million if you can?
Yeah. What's the benefit? Explain the larger ticket obviously makes sense. What else is the benefit of choosing commercial over residential in your industry?
So for me, we were doing, for our size, I was doing 2,000 to 3,000 residential jobs a year. Part of it has to do also, I think, with, where we're doing a lot of restoration work, homeowners their responsibility is to pay the deductible, right? So deductibles have gotten a lot bigger. Back in the day, their deductibles were a couple $100, $500. Now they're 5,000, 8,000, 10,000. Yeah. So it's almost more of a retail model anyway. So you're having to actually learn sales. So, having 2,000 or 3,000 POs versus, 500 POs, that was a big draw for me. And listen, and part of it was, I think I kind of got burned out a little bit of doing that many jobs and running over here, running over there. And, why not just be here and sell a job? And, it's a $1.5 million job. Instead of having to go sell 40 residentials, I sold one commercial that I actually roofed quicker than I did the 40.
I don't even understand how so that's still storm chasing, right? Or like some variation of that. So big storm comes in and we're going to do we go cold call like commercial properties or
management companies?
Management companies.
Yeah, commercial properties. Management companies, property community managers, things like that, industrial parks, Bob's Garage, Cottonwood Dentistry Office, things like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And the average commercial roof is like 200,000 or $1 million, or what's an average ticket here for commercial roofing?
Ours last year was over 300,000.
I have, I know, buddy of mine's Mills Snell. He is in North Carolina. And
okay.
I think he's almost all, I don't actually know the size of the business now. Last I heard it was like 22, 24, somewhere in there, all commercial roofing. But like just one area. I don't think they travel. I'm going to follow up now, but I don't think they travel a lot for it. But yeah, average ticket is huge. You know, 250 or something is what he told me last time. And that is monstrous. You know, you need 100 jobs to do $20 million. That's crazy. We're 100% residential. So I feel this a little bit. I still like residential, but you know, we visited 42,000 homes last year. 42,000 homes. Isn't that just unreal?
That's a lot of homes. It is, you know, but my biggest factor to get out of residential was I can't stand like Google reviews and Yelp and all that type of stuff.
Sure.
And it got to the point where homeowners started to kind of leverage, and it was such an important thing to have, you know, a 4.9 rating or whatever. And it was driving me freaking crazy because I had so many different homeowners. And when I say so many, like a handful, like 8 homeowners leveraging them, like, hey, you know, I owe you $2,300, but like, you know, maybe I'll write a bad review if I, you know, have to pay this. And I was just like, I'm done with this. I kind of got cranky on service.
No, I mean, that's definitely real. Like homeowners weaponize reviews 100%. I mean, some do, obviously not everybody, but that's definitely a thing. They understand the value of it and they make a really big stink all about it. What I've liked about it is we just understand the customer acquisition and we understand the sales process. Whereas I just don't get it as much it just doesn't come naturally to me for commercial. Whereas the residential side kind of seems to come naturally. So it's just easier for us to lean into it. But we also don't have $300,000 average tickets. That might sway me.
Yeah, and listen, it's almost turned into more service. Like that's what we do now. I mean, because all our stuff, our leads are all based off of our service and maintenance. So I mean, we've had to master the service and maintenance side of it to be able to be in the running for these jobs. So
what does that look like? Or do people just call you, or do you have a concerted outbound effort to get those service contracts?
Yeah, so we have dedicated business development reps that, you know, literally their job is just to constantly be in
knock on doors,
in touch with clients, knock on doors. I'm a big believer in knocking on doors and asking for the opportunity. Yeah. Are
there service contracts in commercial roofing, or is it really just like, hey, we're here when you need us?
So there's service and maintenance contracts. So we have a, you know, pretty large repair department that we serve with. But there's anymore, we've transitioned into a lot more service and maintenance tickets twice a year, manual maintenance and things like that.
And this is like flat roof maintenance, basically.
Yeah, we do a lot of low slope flat roofs and a lot of steep slope as well.
I don't think we've ever been offered a maintenance contract, but we have a couple commercial buildings, and yeah, it seems to be like a twice a year they got to go patch something or do something or other for a couple grand. Every time they
clean
show
out
up.
Gutters, things like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. What's average ticket in service? And like how many technicians are on the service side?
So on our service side, I think I have 6 technicians and then a whole kind of support staff behind them.
Yeah.
Average ticket on that is about $1,900.
Do you do that?
One of my offices, I did like $2 million.
Really? Like in you said in all of them?
One of them did $2 million.
How are you doing this across multiple offices? Are guys like traveling to go service, or is it like one service guy each spot, or how does that work?
No, so and when I said the 6, that was based out of the Denver. So like in my Phoenix office, I've got 2 service techs. A lot of the admin stuff always will be based out of Denver, but boots on the ground guys in the field that are there. On occasion, we'll get in a pickle and we got to send guys from, wherever, Denver to whatever, Kansas.
Have locations been, sorry, now I'm just back to locations because it's just fascinating. It's just, for our industry, locations is completely based on kind of like Tommy Mello's a little bit. It's just like, okay, where's the next zip code that has opportunity? Right. Mm-hmm. And it's not really based on any external factors other than, hey, I'm an hour away from this place. I might as well go there. So when you're thinking about additional locations, what was the closest they ever got? Because it sounds like each one's just in a different state.
Yeah, so I've had locations, as close as an hour away. And that was, in my opinion, kind of a waste. To me, for the way that we look at locations, set up locations now is on my client's needs. So I have a lot of different clients, that are major property management companies that, will have properties here, Utah, wherever they have them at. And so what we do is we start offering to serve them. And so for me now, like that's where locations pop up for me now is, hey, Graystar's got, a bunch of properties they want me to serve in, wherever in Utah. And so now I need to have a branch out there. And from there, hey, we at least got our foot in the door. We've got a little bit of revenue coming in. We're serving Graystar. Now I could go out and find, Cushman Wakefields and all those of the world and start building it out. So that's kind of been the model.
That makes sense. And even despite all of that, because that sounds like a lot of retail. So I'm just trying to learn here. Still, a huge majority of the work is insurance.
So we transition though.
Okay.
We transition because, again, I think the commercial and insurance restoration stuff and residential as well has kind of changed over the years. Insurance companies, are pushing back a lot more. And so we intentionally kind of transitioned to do a lot more retail over the years. And also that kind of tied in with private equity as well. But a lot of the different areas that we're called into, they could get a freak storm and that's why we originally got there, but we will stay there sometimes for retail stuff. Because, not everywhere is like Denver or Dallas that gets hell every year. There's sometimes like last time Phoenix got hell was 2011.
So then what does your branch in Phoenix primarily is just going to serve like retail customers then?
All retail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Our branches in California, all retail.
Okay. That makes sense. And all the majority commercial.
Yes. Majority commercial. I'll probably do some residential in California though this year because those fires were crazy. And there's a lot of damage all around, not just in the fire zone, but from the wind and embers actually from the fire, from 10 miles away from where it all burned down.
What's an average size branch right now?
Average size branch is probably 2 to 3 million.
So the model changed a little bit. Obviously, we just said that. So started off sort of storm chasing, and now like Phoenix, not really storm chasing at all. So that's just a permanent location, is what it sounds like, right? Like we're just always going to be there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had some clients ask me if I could serve them in Phoenix. And I said, absolutely. Yeah. So we set up there and then expanded it. Phoenix this last year did a little over 3 million. This year, it'll probably hit 5 though.
Yeah. There's plant and expand or something. I met somebody that was doing that in plumbing for third-party administrators, basically. So they would serve like Starbucks. And they would do their grease traps and like water heaters and, whatever else. And I think they had a few of those, but Starbucks was just my best example. And maybe 5 total clients that were big. And then they would just go launch wherever there was enough density of service calls for Starbucks or whatever. And then they would use that as their into market model. And it sounds like that is now the into market model instead of storm chasing.
Yeah. It is. Storm chasing, in my opinion, is going to go away. After a while, there's going to be storms always, but I think the model's going to change. And so I'm not going to rely on it.
What makes you think it'll change? Like driven by insurance?
Driven by insurance, they're a profit driven, their business isn't to just pay for your damages, right? Like they're a big business and it's got to be profitable. And the way that it's been the last few years for them, it's not that profitable. So they're starting to go to a lot more what's called managed repair programs where they have their own contractors, that are selected, that already agreed to do the work for a certain price.
Yep.
And so your typical roofing contractor is not going to go out and door knock and get a job like we used to.
Is this all subcontracted labor?
Depends on the state. So California is all W-2 employee, Arizona's W-2 employee.
Yeah.
And the rest of it pretty much is 1099, my sub crews.
What is an average, this is kind of a nuanced question maybe, but what's an average roofing contractor size? Like who are you competing against?
Average size is probably 3 to 5 million.
Okay.
So there's not that many. There are. There's a few hundred guys that are doing 20, 30 million, 20 people they're doing, 80 to 100. And, the 2 biggest ones are Centimar and Tecta, and they're both doing like 1.5 and 1.3 billion.
you said this earlier in the episode, how there's just seemingly less complexity. Maybe because there's less, obviously you've launched service, but yeah, I was talking to my friend and he launched this roofing company. He's $4 or $5 million in his first year, and it's 1099 installers. So, I'm sitting here, I'm like, this dude's going to have a $20 million business in like 4 years or something crazy, because all he has to think about is leads and sales, and that is it. Like, he doesn't have to give a shit about anything else. And I'm like, what a superpower that is. Because if plumbing, HVAC, electric, like, we got a lot more things I got to think about.
No, it's kind of a racket, man, and it's been great. It's been great because most roofing companies are actually sales organizations.
Totally.
That's all they are. I mean, they're sales organizations, and you have some more sophisticated companies, right? That have the big warehouse and all the tools, and all the equipment and stuff, and like that's set up more like how you're doing that.
Right.
But the majority of storm restoration contractors are sales organizations. They need a laptop and a nice polo shirt. Like that's all they need.
That's amazing. Like, every time I talk to somebody in roofing, it just makes me want to get into roofing. I'm like, this is
Tommy's
bullshit.
Mello says too.
This is freaking bullshit. I'm sure there's a lot that I'm missing. If I was a newer entrepreneur today, if I wanted to go start a roofing company, what would be a couple points of advice you'd give me?
Man, that first one, like I mentioned a little bit ago, is don't drive past business to get to business. I think that's a key thing. I would also kind of really look at what you have going on in life. And I don't think everybody, I hate the word scaling, because I don't think the word scaling is for everybody. I don't think all companies should scale. I believe that, start now, I pick your mark, and where do you want to get to? Do I want to get to be a $10 million a year company, and I'm going to make, I'm looking at my EBITDA, and my EBITDA is at, 18%, like that's pretty good money. I mean, so for me, for a new guy starting out in this industry, is to not buy into all the hype of necessarily growing to 30 or 40, right? And I know that's kind of counterproductive sometimes, and you get a lot of people up on stage and, let's scale, grow, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just not for everybody, right? I think there's an elite few that's really for, and I think you need to really figure that out, have honest conversation with yourself, and, get a mentor in this industry, get personal mentors, things like that, man. It's just, look, don't buy into all of the hype of trying to grow to 30, 40. Would you have a hell of a life at 5? Would you have a hell of a life at 10? Like, what's that number? So to me, any new guys doing that, like, where can you have like a really good life at?
We had Tommy on the show maybe 2-3 months ago. His message wasn't much different. Really focused on, earnings, really. Like, hey, we're all focused on top line because it's the easiest thing to spout off. But like, what's bottom? What are you taking? What are you reinvesting? And I agree. And I think the bigger the company,
no, you take Tommy. You take a guy like Tommy, if you look at that and you're in the garage door industry, there's never going to be another Tommy Mello, right? You could idolize him and use a lot of his systems, but like, no one else is going to grow a damn garage door company to
200,
whatever it is, 250, 300 million, right? Like that's not going to happen. Could you grow a garage door company to 10 or 20 and have a hell of a life? I'm not trying to like shatter people's dreams or say like shoot for the stars, but I'm just saying, I think sometimes there's also a reality that like that's the exception, and maybe this young person coming in is going to be the exception, going to be able to do that. Yeah. But the average person that we're talking to and that's maybe even listening to this, man, where would you really be good at? 5 million, 10 million, 15? But bottom line, what's your bottom line?
This was awesome. I feel like I got a real education on roofing. It did. I definitely don't want to storm chase at all. I didn't walk away with a desire to do that. But I do like that it is leads and sales, baby. Leads and sales. I like that a lot. That's cool. If people want to connect with you, Paul, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best way?
And the best way, actually, LinkedIn and Facebook.
Well, this was awesome, dude. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. This was a lot of fun to learn about Northwest and to learn about the roofing industry. I feel like I learned a ton. So thanks for coming on.